Hi, I'm Russell Sturgis. I'm the founder and principal of EAP Mentor. Welcome to this new blog series that I'm doing on mindfulness in a practical application in real life. And today I'm looking at mindfulness and food. And if you have followed the last two blogs that I've done that sort of commenced this series, I didn't include food and mindfulness as one of the topics, but this time I felt inspired to discuss that. Food's an interesting thing because for many of us it becomes habitual, and so the way in which we engage the activity of deciding what to eat, where to eat, how to eat, etc., is primarily something that we do habitually, and so to approach food from a mindful perspective is really quite different. And of course, ultimately, like anything else, when we have this capacity to combine awareness and mindfulness to a certain activity, then it has the capacity to enhance our well-being. And so this is the same with food, and I write about that in the written blog. There's some really interesting principles that come out in the discussion that I write about, and one of them is breaking the shame cycle through the practice of self-forgiveness. You know, we have a profiling template in the Enhances Awareness program where we get people to self-assess their state of awareness in terms of how they turn up physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And in the spiritual one of the ones that we have states or proposes the idea of it being easy to be self-forgiving, and it would probably be the most commonly answered no. So we give people a choice of whether it's a no, a yes, or a yes but. And the one that probably more than any of the other 60 statements or 59 statements, this one is the one where most people say no. And that's this whole idea that it's not easy to be self-forgiving. And of course, what comes off the back of that is judgment and many times shame. And particularly when it comes to food, shame is quite significant. One of the things that is really evident is that one of the more successful industries is the dieting industry, and so what we see is that it's a place where there's a huge need, huge demand, but where the challenge lies is in sustainability and the fact that people struggle to be able to sustain a way of eating that enhances their wellness and well-being generally. And so I thought it was timely to include an article or one of my blogs to discuss this whole notion. And so more importantly, what I wanted to add into this blog was this notion of the importance of forgiveness. And this is quite unique as it relates to this because forgiveness is ultimately finding the gift in an experience. And yesterday I came across an old quote that I had made some years ago that said the evidence of forgiveness is gratitude. And gratitude comes off the back of finding the gift. Now, in relationship to food, in the article that I've written, I discuss the whole notion that when we've eaten things that we know don't serve us, and we've made a choice to avoid those things or to not have them be part of our diet, our normal response is to beat ourselves up because we couldn't stay strong. And if it's sort of at a critical point in our sustainable commitment where it's broken that, then we often follow that up with quite a lot of shame and guilt about the fact that we've broken our commitment. And of course, oftentimes we then resort to eating in order to comfort ourselves with the notion that we weren't able to keep on doing what it was that we pledged or that we were committed to doing. And so we have this sort of catch-22 where we keep on chasing our tail, so as to speak, around our dietary habits. And in the article, I talk about the importance of awareness. And of course, one of the key components of awareness is this capacity to be able to gain more knowledge and understanding about what creates sustainable health and well-being. So that when we come to being mindful, we have this pool of knowledge that sustains our decision-making in terms of our commitment to being healthy and having greater well-being. So having a pool of knowledge is one thing, but experience is another. And there's great value in the knowledge that comes with experience. And the whole key of failure, if I can use the words when it comes to dieting, is that in fact what it is expanded knowledge as a result of experience. And so it may be, for example, that you have decided that, because of the way in which your body metabolizes refined carbohydrates, you've decided to cut out refined carbohydrates, and something happens and you choose a meal that wasn't the best choice around that, and later on you really feel it. Now, once again, awareness is the ability to be really tuned in to what it is that you're experiencing. And I've been in that situation where I've had refined carbohydrates and I can feel this sort of congestion that begins to rise, and I'm clearing my throat, and of course what happens is I feel the desire to want to have more of the carbohydrates building, and it doesn't take long and I can find myself back into pretty well full inclusion of those sorts of not serving carbohydrates in my diet. Now, in the model of forgiveness that I'm talking about, it's about being in that place where we make choices that are less loving, that are less serving, and we recognize that it wasn't a good choice. And instead of going down the shame and personal blame and guilt track, what we're able to do is stop and go, well, hang on a second. What I'm really aware of is that making that choice hasn't served me in terms of how I'm feeling. And so I'm now much clearer about that being a choice that I don't want to make. So in other words, there would need to be other choices that I could make that would be better serving. And so in this moment, we're doing two things, in fact. We're identifying the fact that it wasn't a self-loving choice, but we're also then considering, well, what would be better loving choices under those circumstances. And so in that moment, what we've done is enhanced our awareness for how to relate to being presented with choices. And choices are good because choices is a step beyond habit. Habit, we don't function from choice. We just do what we've always done. So now we've created an enhanced knowledge, which means we have an enhanced choice when presented with this situation again. Now, the very, very important component here is that because we now have enhanced awareness and we're in a better position to make a choice, we can be grateful for that. We can be really thankful that that experience happened, because now it's made me much clearer about what I would prefer to choose given those circumstances presenting again in the future. And so because I have that greater sense of clarity and enhanced, expanded awareness in terms of being aware of the choice, I can be really grateful for what happened. And so instead of feeling bad about it, I can actually go, well, it wasn't the best thing that I could have done, but in the context of what I'm trying to do, this is actually pretty darn good, because now I'm much clearer that that's not what I want to do moving forward. And so in that moment, that experience becomes a gift, something that we can be grateful for. And that's the point at which there's forgiveness, because now we've found the value in what it was that happened, and we can take that to service. Now, this principle applies to anything where we make choices that are less than loving, and for ourselves and for other people, because when you have that sensation afterwards that goes, oh, that wasn't a good choice, that wasn't the most serving thing that I could do, next time around maybe I could do that a bit differently. Therein is the gift. That's about self-forgiveness in that point. And of course, so when we add in the knowledge that we've gleaned by research, and when we then compound awareness with experience and being clear about what it is that I don't want, and being more clear about what I do want as a result of experience, when we marry that with knowledge based on research, then we've got a really powerful tool for creating ongoing, sustainable change when it comes to our dietary habits. And so, once again, if you remember, and I highlight this in the article, our definition of mindfulness is remembering that you have a choice to be kinder to yourself, to others, and to the planet. So what happens is, the next time this food's presented to you, you're in a position now where you have an expanded framework of information, which means that your choice is richer. By virtue of you have much more clarity about what's loving for myself in this particular situation. Now, I also reiterate in the article about the whole notion that you follow the path of least resistance. In other words, in that moment, you've recognized the choice, you've embedded it with the knowledge and the understanding that you now have. And it's about, it's not about resisting what's there. It's either succumbing to what's there yet again with another opportunity to reinforce the understanding that this wasn't a loving choice, or it's about making the loving choice. In other words, it doesn't take discipline to say no. What happens in that particular situation is that it now becomes something where you go, no, I really want to be more loving to myself. So it's a choice that is embedded in this idea of being more loving to yourself, to others, and to the planet. So in that moment, you have the capacity to make a choice that's a loving choice. And when it becomes a loving choice, it's easy. Literally, it's easy. There's no challenge in that. And I would suggest to you that if you've got to go through the discipline or the denial of eating the carbs, so as to speak, there's going to be a point where the wheels will come off, and it may be better that you're in the place where you go with what comes easiest at this particular point. I can assure you that if you keep on repeating that process of being mindful prior to making the choices, there's a tipping point where the choices do become loving choices, and it becomes really easy. It becomes as easy as choosing to eat the carbohydrates. It literally can become that easy. So food's a big one, and so what happens is, as you begin to become more aware of loving choices, you start to make time to prepare more of your own food, and you then are much more particular about the ingredients that you include and the recipes that you are aligned with, and how you eat your food and when you eat your food. And all of these things begin to take more of a priority in terms of how you relate to your food experience. Of course, what happens is you then start to make loving choices, and the natural consequence of that is feeling better Oftentimes, if it's carb related, it'll be weight loss, but just in terms of energy levels, quality of sleep, how you feel in your digestive tract, reducing inflammation markers in your body. So a lot of the chronic diseases that people deal with, their symptoms start to decrease. There's a whole lot of benefits that are a knock-on from becoming much more aware and consequently empowered and being mindful around your choices with food. Anyway, look, I hope you find that this is informative. And for those of you who struggle with making loving choices around food, I understand completely. And hopefully this will give you some insights from my own experience about how to better manage your relationship with food. Anyway, if you want to know more about EAP, please go to our website, eapmentor.com. Go to our Facebook page, Enhances Awareness program, and please contact us if you'd like to learn more about how to live mindfully from a Western perspective. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.